The regular season is in the past. The NHL playoffs are here. We're here to break them down on Puck Time. We have the Jets, Avalanche, Panthers, Lightning, Maple Leafs, and Bruins right here on WagerTalk TV. Carmine, what are your thoughts, man? Jets and Avalanche.
Andrew, I am so looking forward to the playoffs finally starting, and they go on Saturday. This is a good one. This one goes on Sunday, Sunday at 7 p.m. I think some of the games were schedule-wise have been reshuffled after last night's games and the matchup and the pairings set aside. You look at this one, Andrew, and the Jets. I'm seeing on our live lines are -112. This game is almost a pick 'em, -112, -108 for the Avalanche in this one. And I'm going to throw some numbers at you, Andrew, and you tell me what you think of these, because we have to look at last year as well, too. Last year in the Western Conference, Game 1, the road team won all four games in the Western Conference. 2 of 4 teams in the East, 2 of 4 games in the East were won by the road team. So 6 of 8. I always say, if you're going to win a game in a series as the underdog in the series, and unfortunately, I think the Avalanche are actually the favorites in this one in the series at a very slim price. But the road team has to win Game 1 to establish that or take that home ice away from a team. Now, last year, four Western Conference road teams win Game 1. Only one of those 4 go on to win the series. So when we talk about series prices, sometimes you can bet the series after Game 1 and get a better price. If your team lost Game 1, you're going to get a much better price on it as well, too. Only one, and that was the Seattle Kraken against this Colorado team. They went in, won Game 1 in Colorado, went on to win that series. It's been a fantastic season for this Winnipeg Jets team. Even with sitting out players in their final game against Vancouver, they still came up with a win. They still looked very good in doing it. And you got the Vezina Trophy winner. He's going to win the trophy this year for the Vezina, Hellenbuck. But this Avs team, man, Andrew, it's hard for me to get away from this Avs team just because they have so much talent scoring wise. It all comes down to, do you trust the Colorado? This is the question in this series. Do you trust the Colorado goaltending? Georgiev and Anderson, I pronounce his name right. I've listened to it all game long yesterday. Noonan, I think it's a Noonan is the way they pronounce it. I'm going to get it wrong. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Do you trust the goaltending? He played extremely well last night as well, too, against the Edmonton Oilers. He played extremely well, even though it was a watered-down Oilers team. He could end up earning the start in Game 1. I like the Avs here. I know you're a big Jets fan, but I like the Avs here. I'm going to go with the trend that we saw last year, and I'm not banking it on what we saw last year in the first round of the playoffs, especially in Game 1. But I think the Avs have something to prove after getting bounced in Game 1. They have the talent. It's just a matter of, can they get through? Because it's going to be a whiteout. And for you guys who don't know, the whiteout in Winnipeg, everyone wearing it. It's a sea of white in the stands. It's a sight to behold when the fans come out and do that. It's the atmosphere in Winnipeg is going to be absolutely phenomenal for this Game 1. I'm going to look for the road team to steal the win at -108, Andrew.
All right, starting it off here with the road team, Carmen. You know, Brian Leonard talked about it a lot, last year as well, about the fact that these road teams, that's where the value can be sometimes, right? We do see a little bit of home cooking, the number, dictating a little bit more towards the home team. And over the years, that's kind of gone away, the home ice advantage. Of course, for some teams, it's certainly a factor. It's beneficial for them. Look at the Carolina Hurricanes, how well they've played over the years at home. But I agree with you. Overall, there's going to be some spots to look towards the road teams on the year. Winnipeg with 110 points, Avalanche with 107. It came right down to the wire as far as home ice advantage in this one. When we did the preview videos with Kelly Stewart and breaking down some of these NHL matchups, I kind of look at this matchup here as a superstar team versus a team with depth, right? I mean, I'm not saying the Avalanche don't have much depth in their bottom six at all, but I think that if you line up all the players in the Jets and line up all the players on the Avalanche, you've got more game breakers on the Jets, but you just have far more superstars on the Avalanche with McKinnon and Rantanen and Makar and all of those guys that make plays on a nightly basis. But because of the home ice factor, getting the last change, I think, is huge. Getting that matchup that you'd like. And Rick Bowness is going to get to do that with the home ice, which is why, Carm, even though we've seen this Jets team score more goals this season, be a little bit more offensive, they did pick up Toffoli, they pick up Monahan, adding some depth. You talked about it a few moments ago. Who is their MVP? McKinnon's the MVP for the Avalanche. Who's the MVP for the Winnipeg Jets? And we both know it's Connor Hellebuck. So for that reason, I'm going to start things off with an under 5.5. I think that this series is going to start off very, very, very defensive. We're going to see a lot of teams being very careful in round one in their first games. And once that first goal is scored, that you break the ice and some certain things can happen. But I'll tell you, I'm not saying that the Jets will be the only team that will get a lead and protect it. I truly believe that with how the goaltending has looked lately for the Avalanche and their defense, we might see them get a lead and try and protect it as well. I know we've seen 6.5s and even 7s this year as totals, but it's playoff time, guys, and I'm taking an under on a 5.5. Any lean for you on the total in this one, Carm, or you're going to rock with just the side?
Yeah, I'm looking at the totals, Andrew, and I'm going to throw some stats again from last year to you guys because it's all relevant. Come playoff time, as you said, Andrew, the 6s and 6.5s are gone. They're 5.5s now. You could very well see some 5s after game one that are obviously juiced to the over on the 5s. But last season, game ones, the under went 5-2-1 last season, the unders in game one. You look at overall, 88 games were played in the playoffs last year. The over went 45, 42-1, 45 overs, 42 unders, 1 push. And then we talk about home teams. Last year, 88 games in the playoffs, 41 home teams won, 47 away teams won. Of the 41, 32 times the home team was favored of those 41 games. So that tells you, listen, they're basically 50-50 numbers. And unless you're getting some big juice on them, there isn't even a small advantage there of trying to look at sort of trends of whether overs or unders come in. But Andrew, I don't want to look at the total as of yet on this one, but I have a question for you because we always talk about betting series prices. So the series price in this one is Colorado minus 130. So if Colorado wins this game, the series price should go to about and this is if you're looking at betting Winnipeg. If let's say Winnipeg loses game one, but they put in a very good performance, it goes to OT, they lose. The series price on Colorado is going to go from about 130 to about 190 minus 200. The take back on Winnipeg is going to be about plus 150. If Colorado loses game one, they're going to go from minus 130 to plus 120. So if you like the Avalanche, there's 2 ways of looking at this. If you like the Avalanche to win the series and you don't want to lay the VIG, don't play them and hope they lose game one and you're going to get them at plus money in a series that they trail one game to nothing. So all they've got to do at the end of the day is protect home ice and win one game on the road. That's the thought process on not laying VIG and getting plus money back. Thoughts on that one? If Winnipeg loses and you can get Winnipeg at plus 150 instead of, say, plus 110, would you do it?
Yeah, Carm, I'm a big believer that you do not have to get all your series bets in pre-flop 100%. And I know that you're the same as me. I'll be giving out client plays as far as series wagers after game ones or after game twos, 100%. And if if you want to look at something different, if you think the price might not be what you want it to be, but hey, after going down 1-0, if you think Colorado does have some value, then you can jump in. And for people looking at home, again, we talked about it. The Jets won the series, the season series 3-0, having some dominating games as well in this one. One of them, they blanked them. One of them winning 4-2. One of them winning 7-0. So this is a matchup that the Jets controlled. But one thing that you talked about, which will segue us into our next series, Carm, is that the fact that the Avalanche were upset in the first round last year to a wild card team. And so was our next team, the Boston Bruins, that absolutely broke a record last year for most wins in a single season. And they ended up losing to the Florida Panthers. So motivating factors going into the next year are certainly a thing. This Colorado team won the Stanley Cup, and then all of a sudden you get bounced the next year in the first round. We're going to touch on the Bruins and Leafs in just 1 second. Carm, we have Brady Wheeler in here saying Carmine killed it last night. He bought your picks for the first time. He said you're absolutely a killer. He loves you, and you are his Canadian compadre. So I like that. Carm, I'm sure you appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate it. I mentioned on the show yesterday, and I got it out early for my clients because I think if you're scouring the reports and you're looking at the beat reporters who are there or getting the firsthand knowledge, sometimes you can find out the info that's not posted yet before the line moves. And I released the Avalanche as a 4% play on the regulation line, -105. That closed at -140. So you got the closing line value and you got the win. Sometimes you get the closing line value, you don't get the win. And then, of course, McKinnon needed 2 points to set a franchise record for the Avalanche. He was going to play. Gerard Bednar, he asked his team. They had 3 days off and he asked his team, what do you guys want to do? And all the stars wanted to play. They all wanted to play the last game against the Edmonton Oilers. They wanted to go into the playoffs on a positive note. Those are the things you want to hear from coaches, from players. So I thought, it was a great time to take them. And then that line blew up. It went from -140 to 220 as soon as the news came out, which I mentioned on PuckTime yesterday, that McDavid wouldn't play, Draisaitl wouldn't play, Nugent Hopkins. They basically sat out Zach Hyman. They sat out Bouchard. They sat out like 7 players. You knew they were going to do it on the second of a back-to-back, but if you can hear it and put it out. So it worked. Let's hope it continues to work for the playoffs. Andrew, and someone asked in our, I guess in the YouTube shorts or on Instagram. Could you arguably take the unders in all games and be profitable? No, I don't think so. And you can use last year as an example: 45 overs, 42 unders, 1 push. Normally, unless you're getting the better of it and getting the plus money on any of those bets, you're laying vig the way the numbers are always juiced. And if you're laying 110, 120 on a prop that finishes at probably 50.1 or 50.2%, you're not making money. You're losing. You have to consistently lay as little juice as possible, -110, and hit at like 55% to 54, 55% to make a profit. So I wouldn't blindly bet unders in all the games in the playoffs this season.
So overall, for me, I would say that back in the day, and it sounds funny for me saying that, Carm, back in the day, but usually you would see a high-scoring start to a series, and then the series would slow down towards the end. And about 3 or 4 years ago, guys, I noticed a flip in that process. I noticed a flip as far as the goal scoring, and I realized that the more these teams got to know each other, the more it actually benefited the offense. The more these teams played each other, the more penalties we saw, which led to power plays. So for me, I'm going to test this theory out again this year. I think early on in a series, we're liking unders. As the series progresses, you see more empty net goals. You see these teams starting to figure things out a lot more. You start to look at a little bit more overs. Elimination games, you see overs. Sometimes one, if not two, empty net goals that can push a total over, especially if you're getting 5.5. But to Carmine's point, we don't want to be auto betting unders, but I would certainly say that these games aren't going to fly over. They're not going to fly under. It's going to be different for every single game and every single matchup here, Carm. That's for sure.
Yeah, Andrew, and you can look at like a couple series. I think, and if we look at like even like the Leaf series last season, you watch you think normally the train of thought is these teams are going to play a little loose in game one, get to know each other, and then settle down and play some tough hockey. But these teams know each other already. There's 82 games of game film if they haven't already played each other. But last year, Tampa comes to Toronto, scores 7 in game one, embarrasses the Leafs. Leafs come back the next night and score 7 against Tampa. So you sort of look at the game, and then things settle down. You look at you expect the Leafs to continue to score goals. They play the series against Florida, and they couldn't get more than 2 goals a game. They averaged 2 or less in every single game in that Florida series. So it's one of the things that is going to happen. I think the eye test, the first couple of games, you don't have to come out guns a-blazing, guys, and bet every single game the opening weekend. I know we want to do it. So we're fans. We love to bet, but watch these teams, watch how they settle down into this, and get an idea of how these teams are going to play. And maybe that'll help you formulate an opinion for games 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 and 7, and make some money. There's no sense in, for lack of a better phrase, blowing your load in the opening weekend of the NHL season, playoff season.
Absolutely. It's going to be a long playoffs. I feel like people forget that, how long the playoffs really are. 4 rounds to get through, and a lot of series going 6 or 7 games. Guys, if you're with us right now live or you're watching afterwards, comment below, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on Shorts, YouTube feed, Facebook. Let us know who will raise the Stanley Cup over their heads this year. It's the last chance for us to really ask you before the playoffs begin. So we want your comments, and don't worry. After the Stanley Cup's over, we might do one more show, and we're going to shout you guys out if you're right. So let us know who you believe will win the Stanley Cup. If you're with us right now, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow this thing, guys. We are growing big time here. WagerTalk TV. Show some love to us on the YouTube network. All right, Carm, this is a big one here. The Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins, a rivalry that's been around for many, many years here. Game 1 taking place at TD Garden here. This will be tomorrow, Saturday at 8:10 Eastern time, I believe here. Looking at the Bruins, 109 points on the year, finishing second in the Atlantic. As far as the Maple Leafs, third in the Atlantic with 102 points. The Boston Bruins winning the season series 4-0, with 1 win being by a shootout, 1 win being by overtime, and the next 2 victories in a span of 3 or 4 days coming at the same score of 4-1. Although the score line can be a little bit tricky, because actually the 5-on-5 numbers, expected goals, shots on goal, all that good stuff favored Toronto in the last 2 games, despite losing 4-1 in those contests here, Carm. It's going to be real interesting to see what happens in this game. And, I'll just say this before I go to you, Carm. I think that this is going to be one of those series that we're super excited about, and it's going to be really great for the fans and for the teams to see. But something tells me, and you see this all the time, because a win is a win, right? You don't get more points for how many, goals you win by. It's just 1 win in the series. Something tells me it might be kind of anticlimactic, and we're going to see like the first 2 or 3 games of this series be decided by 2 or 3 goals. I truly, truly do believe that. And I think that if you look at this Maple Leafs team right now for game 1, you're getting -140 on over 2.5 team total goals. I know it's against the Boston Bruins. I know it's against a great starting goaltender. I know you're playing on the road. Something tells me here it might be actually beneficial for the Maple Leafs to start on the road. Get out early, get a road victory, get the offense going. If people recall, this is a Maple Leafs team that doesn't usually look bad to start off their playoff series. It's usually when things get sweaty in game 5, 6, and 7, they start to choke, Carm, for lack of better words here. So over 2.5 team total for me, even though it's a bit chalky and I usually like the plus price on those, I kind of like the Leafs to get to 3. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can see it. And we talk about analytics all the time on the show. Andrew, we filmed, and if you guys watching now, we filmed a video yesterday with Kelly Stewart. It should be up later today, I believe, and it'll have Andrew and I each covered a couple series each, and then we covered one together and gave our thoughts on who wins the series. Of course, how could I not do the Toronto Maple Leafs series? So I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I talked about yesterday, but I'm gonna talk about this game as well too. You look at it and we're going into this series, and all season long, I've been tough on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I am all the time, but it's playoff time now. And listen, the Boston Bruins, say what you want to say. The Boston Bruins, their final 2 games, losing 2-0 to the Washington Capitals, 3-1 to the Ottawa Senators. They did not want to play Tampa Bay. They didn't match up well with Tampa Bay. They wanted to play the Leafs, a team that they're now meeting for the 4th time in 11 years in the opening round. And the previous 3 series, all won by Boston, game 7 at home at TD Garden. Is it going to go 7? I don't even think it's going to go 7 this season. I think it's going to go 6. And I think this is a be careful what you wish for kind of scenario for the Boston Bruins. They wanted the Leafs, they got them. The Leafs last year, they couldn't stop with their fan base, couldn't stop with "we want Florida," and they got Florida and they got bounced. So with that thought, you look at the series and let's talk about defensively. By far, Boston holds all the edges defensively. They're always a tough team defensively. Each and every year, they're one of the best defensive teams out there, and they play extremely well. Goaltending. If you looked at goaltending from afar, you would think the Allmark Swayman goaltending compared to the Wall Samsonov, there's a huge disparity there. I'm here to tell you it's not as big as you believe it is. Samsonov got sent down, spent time with a goaltending coach, came back up. The guy went 18-4-2 with a 269 goals against average, 905 save percentage on a team that doesn't have a good defense, as good a defense as the Bruins. He kept his goals against average at 2.69, winning 18 of 24 games. He's the guy who's going to help the Leafs win this series if they're going to win this series. You look at coaching, I'll always take Montgomery over Sheldon Keefe. But the one thing Keefe has done differently in the second half of the season, which could help the Leafs in this round of the playoffs and didn't help them last year, is he separated Marner and Matthews. He separated Marner and Matthews, so there weren't a top-heavy number 1 line that if you shut them down, you shut down the Leafs. Now you've got 2, 3 lines that you need to shut down. And I think the Leafs offensively are a much better team than the Boston Bruins are. And in a series like this, it is the offense that is going to rule at the end of the day. If Samsonov can keep the Bruins to 3 or less goals in this series each and every game, the Leafs are going to win this series. I'm going to take the Leafs plus 110 to win the opener on Saturday night. And I'm sorry, Bruins fans, but be careful what you wish for. You wish for the Leafs. You got them. Now you've got to beat them. Let's see what happens.
Well, Carmen, and like I mentioned, so we've got back-to-back series that we've talked about here where the team that is, or actually, one series with the Jets and Avalanche, you had the Jets that dominated that season series, and yet they were dogs. And now we have the team that won the season series that were favorites here in this one. But, how much do we care about the regular season? And I always say, as far as certain teams, it's an 82-game preseason. That's how the Maple Leafs feel. And as far as the Boston Bruins, that's how they should feel right now after, again, losing to the Panthers in the first round. I want to throw something back at you, Carm, then we'll move on to the next game. But I was on a show yesterday with Jeff Dawson, and him and I were talking about the opening number as far as the odds on this series. And if you take a look at it, really, don't you think that if they wanted Bruins money, that it would be opened up a little bit different, as far as some more love towards the Maple Leafs? But the way this number was opened up, I feel like if you like the Maple Leafs price, I think you could almost wait and get a better number closer to puck drop. What do you think? What was your opening opinion as far as the number you saw in this series, or was it exactly as you expected? Do you think it'll move at all before tomorrow night?
Well, here's, we talk about the books. The books are very, obviously the books are sharp. They have guys setting lines that are very good in a sport like this, and especially come playoff time where it's no longer 14 games a night, Andrew, or 15 games a night with 32 teams. It is a couple of games a night. The series prices, there's only 16 teams. The numbers are sharper. They're going to be sharper. So tell me this, for you guys in the chat, because I know there's guys who disagree with me on this. If the Bruins are so dominant over the Leafs and they beat them, they won the season series 4-0. The first couple games went to OT. The second couple of games, which were played over a span of, I think, 4 days or 5 days, the Bruins won 4-1 in Toronto, 4-1 at home. It looks like they beat them handily. Why are they only minus 125 to win this series? Why aren't they minus 190 like the Edmonton Oilers are over the LA Kings? Why? Ask yourself that question. Do they want you to bet the Bruins? And I'm not saying this is why they set the line to where it is because this series is a lot closer than most people believe. And that's what I'm telling you. And in a series that I think is a close series, I want to take the plus money team in the series. So we'll see. If the Leafs last year used that, got out of the first round for the first time in 18 years. Now, in those 18 years, there was a lot of years in which they missed the playoffs. So you have to factor that in. There's probably about, of those 18 years, there's probably about 8 or 9 years where they missed the playoffs. They had bad teams then, but they finally beat Tampa Bay last year to get into the second round. And they just ran into the juggernaut, which was the Florida Panthers, who knocked off the Bruins as well, too, on their way to making it to the Stanley Cup before ultimately losing to the Vegas Golden Knights. So they're minus 125. If you love the Bruins, hey, have at it. Bet it all. It's your money. I'm just here to tell you that this series is a lot closer than what people believe. And it's kind of like at the Super Bowl, when you flip a coin on an even proposition and you're paying minus 130 for heads, or you're paying minus 130 for tails, you're going to lose your money eventually on a 50-50 proposition, laying that vig. So I'll take the plus money here. Leafs, if they can win one of 2 games in Boston, hopefully the first one is the better one to win. They have control of the series, at least early on. They have control of the series.
Absolutely, Carm. It's going to be tight. And I think that you're going to be able to get plus money on the series price for both teams at some point. So if that doesn't tell you kind of how I feel, it should. And I also believe, again, I'll say it, the choking and the playoff history woes from this matchup come later on in the series. Games 5, 6, and 7, being outcoached, blowing leads does not happen early on. Let's move on to our last matchup we'll discuss here. And we're going to talk about the Battle of the Sunshine State here, Carmine. We got the Panthers and the Lightning here going head-to-head, taking a look at the Panthers, finishing first in the Atlantic with 110 points. We got Tampa Bay Lightning, the first wildcard team, with 96 points. But as we always say, just get in. Just make the playoffs. And that was the deal here for the Tampa Bay Lightning. We saw Florida go 2-1 on the season series here in this matchup. Carm picking up Vladimir Tarasenko, making some moves at the deadline for the Florida Panthers. Reinhart having an unbelievable career year for this team has been great for them. Tampa Bay picks up Matt Dumba. They pick up Anthony Duclair. And they'll have a healthy Tanner Jeannot which will be huge for them as well. Maybe it's Janot. I'm not sure if that's a French name or not here, Carm. I always say that guy's name differently. Nonetheless, it's going to be an unbelievable series here between these two teams. And as you were just saying about the previous series that we broke down, I really encourage people not to just look at the single season points for these two teams, but to look at all the different stuff that goes inside the numbers here, Carm. And one big thing I look at in this one, penalty minutes. You know, when I go through certain things, I go through how can a team be physical but not take that many penalties? The Tampa Bay Lightning are way better at being physical and being a real pain in the ass without taking penalties. The Florida Panthers obviously had a great record on the year, but they had the most penalty minutes in the entire National Hockey League. If that transitions over into the postseason, that won't do well for them in a matchup against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that has Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, and Hedman that are out there dominating the power play. And you talked about it, and Joe Ranieri talked about it with these power play point props. That's where Tampa Bay makes their money when they're out there on the power play. So, Carm, when I look at this series, the first two series we talked about so far, we saw 5.5 as the totals here. And then now you take a look at this one, we're seeing 5.5 once again, minus 120 towards the over. So what I'm going to do, even though I've been saying I like the unders in game one, I'm actually going to bet the first period over. I think this game starts with a bang in game one, and then it might slow down once we get into the second and third period. First period over for me. Wouldn't shock me if both teams get on the board. Wouldn't shock me if both teams have a third liner that scores the goal, because I do think these teams do have depth. Overall, I do give Tampa Bay a puncher's chance in this series, just because I think they do have depth and they do have the experience and they do have the great coach. But I'm going to stick with the game one bet right now. First period, over 1.5 goals, minus 125. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm probably looking at the as far as the first game, even though I mentioned like last year, 5 of the 8 opening games went under the total. I think it was, I think I said it was 5-2-1. This is one where I feel like the first game could go over. I think the longer this series goes, Andrew, the more it favors Tampa Bay. And you look at the series price, and the series price is higher on Florida. They're minus 180, they're minus 170 in this game. I'm a little surprised by the price, to be honest with you. Minus 170 in this game. The take back on Florida is plus 142. And it's mainly because these teams are familiar with themselves. Florida's not going to surprise anybody in the playoffs this year like they did last year, where they just played some phenomenal defense. They've done it all season long. It's just that I think throughout the Tampa Bay lineup, they can spread their scoring throughout their lineup. They can get that secondary scoring. Florida is a very top-heavy team. You look at guys like Reinhardt, Tkachuk. There's another guy. His name slips my mind. A majority of their goals came from those three guys, and then there's a drop-off. I think the longer it goes and the grind of this series goes, I think if you have a lot of secondary scoring, you end up winning a series, especially one that goes 6 or 7 games. I give Tampa more than a puncher's chance of winning this series. They could very well win this series against the Florida Panthers. And this is a team that is a very good defensive team. We'll give it that. There's zero travel for these teams. You know what I mean? They're staying in the state of Florida. So it's a great series for them back and forth. But I think Tampa could win this series. I honestly believe that. And in game one, while not wanting to take a side in it, I would probably, if I had to lean, guys, I would probably lean to Tampa. I'd look at, again, for the visiting team to win game one of the series, and you're getting a juicy price on them. But I tend to, I'm looking at the over 5.5 in this one. It's about minus 120-ish I'm seeing right now. And I'd probably lean to the over in this one. I think some of what we saw towards the end of the season could very well carry over into the first game. There was a lot of, Tampa played a loose game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They knew exactly what Toronto were trying to do. Florida played the exact same game against the Toronto Maple Leafs with the whole Matthews trying to get to 70 goals. So both teams, there were more pond hockey than anything else. Do they tighten the screws in game one right off the bat? I'm not necessarily certain they do. So I'll probably look to take the over in game one, and then gravitate to taking, if I see it goes over, but it barely gets there, or there was a very good defensive game. I'm probably going to start looking at unders in this series, because if you got a team like Florida, they're a tough team to score on. But I do like this Tampa team, and I think I would rather they had played the Boston Bruins, Andrew, in the opening round, because I thought Tampa, of all the teams in the playoffs, I thought Tampa was the one team that could make a serious run um, to a Stanley Cup. Again, this team has they have the pedigree, they have the coach, they have the goaltending with Vasilevsky, and they have the experience. So they're a very good team. You can't discount any of that once the playoffs start. A team like them, with the experience they have, winning 2 cups and then making it to a third before losing. So with that said, I'm going to take the over in this one, and then I'm going to look at the series price as well too, and see if I can steal some plus money with Tampa.
I like it, Carm. You have had a phenomenal run over the last little while here, 2024. I like when our thoughts align. You're on the over full game. I'm on the over first period, 1.5 goals there. And I got to apologize to Brady Weiler. This is why I don't say last names here, guys, okay? I usually stick to the first names for a reason. I pronounced the name wrong. My apologies, but we appreciate all the love, the kind words that Brady is giving us. Matty Crenshaw is asking, will shot props for top players remain profitable? Carm, for me, I'll compare NHL player props to my volume of just general NBA betting. I bet more NBA playoff games than I do the entire regular season. And that's how I feel about NHL player props. I'll bet more player props over the next week and a half, 2 weeks with my clients than I probably did throughout the entire regular season. For the NBA, it's pretty simple. You don't have to worry about who's in the lineup, load management, injuries. You know who's out there. You know the matchup during the playoffs. That's pretty simple but with the NHL, until they adjust the numbers, that it's way too much to play. David Pastrnak is going to get his shots on goal. McKinnon is going to get his shots on goal. Some of these point guys playing defense, like Quinn Hughes, they're going to get their shots on goal. So I think you can definitely make those adjustments. And also, Carm, you've got the guys on the third line, the fourth line that get their shots. And who's to say we aren't betting unders as well, finding some players that might just be getting out there for some shifts that are shutdown guys. If you find out who's getting matched up against Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, do you think that those forwards are playing offense when they're out there, or defense? Mostly just offense for their shots. So to answer the question, I think it's a great time for shots on goal props, Carm. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, I'm sure I do agree. And Andrew, thank you, because you corrected me. Well, you didn't correct me; you added to it. I'm like, the name slips my my mind. Verhage, as far as Florida's scoring, but then there's a drop off. But when you're a good defensive team, um, maybe having 2 or 3 top heavy guys is good enough. And it was for Florida all season long. So we'll see how that series unfolds. Andrew, a couple things, guys. Drop a comment in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed, of course, subscribe to the channel. So we're going to be doing a lot of playoff content, Andrew and I, and hit the notifications so you'll know when we're doing shows, because we may even do some first period intermission shows as well too. So you guys don't want to miss that one. Some live stuff during the weekday games, probably much better than the weekend games, Andrew. At least for me, it is. And we mentioned, drop who you guys think is going to win the Stanley Cup this weekend. Drop it in the comment section. I got some fresh tees, guys. I got the new PuckTime Be a Goldfish t-shirts. I picked up 6 of them the other day. I sent to the winners. Theirs have gone out already. You don't have to get anything right. Just drop a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win the cup. I can tell you it's not going to be Buffalo. It's not going to be Montreal. They're the free spaces on the bingo card. But tell us who you realistically think is going to win the Stanley Cup. And I'll pull out a name of those, and I'm going to run some contests to get out some T-shirts during the NHL playoffs. The second round of shirts came out pretty damn cool, I believe. I'll wear one on the next show, or I tweeted it out. So if you check my Twitter, you'll see that it's on there. Andrew, we don't have a best bet segment because we're basically telling people the 3 games that we like in this one. Is there a series, before we wrap this up, that you think stands out as I'm going to bet this series, or I'm going to wait until game 1 is over and then bet the series?
I think, are you asking me if I'm going to have a lot more after the game 1, or if I'm going to be interested in pregame?
Is there anything that you're priced? Is there anything that you're priced out of? Because the option always is this, Andrew, and I always say it is: if you think the price is bad, do not take it. Number one, and then hope to get the result, a result that will give you the price that you wanted. So, case in point, let's look at. I'll give you one. Let's look at the. I won't even say Carolina Hurricanes. Let's look at the Edmonton Oilers. I think the Oilers are going to win the series against the LA Kings, but the LA Kings are a very good team as well too. They can play some good defense, and they can get the goaltending. I'm not going to lay $1.90 on Edmonton to win the series. So, do I hope that Edmonton loses game 1? And they've done it in the past against LA, where they've lost game 1 and then came back and won the series. If they lose game 1, that line from minus 190 comes down to probably not even money, but probably like minus 120 on the Oilers to win the series. Now that price I will take. I'm down 1-0 in a series, but now I'm getting a price that I feel comfortable with playing. So that's all I'm asking. The Carolina one, they're minus 340. They could lose game 1 against the New York Islanders, and no disrespect to the New York Islanders, but that price is still going to be about 150, 160 on Carolina to win the series.
So the 2 that I would say probably, Carm, are one of the ones we talked about, which would be the Bruins and Leafs. I think that if you can get the Bruins at a plus price, if it seemed like you and I both kind of lean towards that side for the Leafs for game 1, if they win game 1, the Bruins all of a sudden become the small dogs in the series, then I can go ahead and jump on the Boston Bruins, get a plus price on them here. And, if they win game 2, they're back to being favorites again. The second series that I would add to, involving another Canadian team, would be the Vancouver Canucks. They had a very tough year last year, and man, oh man, did they respond. They came back strong this year against the Nashville Predators. Now it will be their opponent. This, to me, is a matchup where we could see the first games be a split. One game goes one way, one game goes the other. If Nashville takes round 1, we're going to get a better price on this Vancouver Canucks team compared to what we're currently seeing, Carm.
Yep. No, listen, I agree. And guys, I know, looking at some of the live chat comments, we're all like in agreement or disagreement on plays. We can't all agree on the same play. And that's why when you drop a comment, if you don't agree with my take on the Leafs and Bruins, I'm perfectly fine with it. If you don't agree with my take on Colorado, Winnipeg, I'm perfectly fine with it. If we all agreed on the same game, there would be no market. That's the way you need to look at it. There would be no market. So there has to be some agreement to create a market as far as betting goes. So with that said, Andrew, what do you have up at WagerTalk? I'm going to get you to close it out, but I'll let you go first while I collect my thoughts.
Carm, all I really want to promote is our BOGO special, our BOGO playoff special that includes both of us. There's no promo code needed, no promo code necessary. At my profile page, at Carmine's profile page, get every single bet that we release, whether it's a shot prop, a point prop, a total, a side, a future, a series, every bet that we both release for $299. 5% plays remain $35. You put those two together, all of a sudden, you know, for Carmine and myself, you're getting both of them in one day in that package. So that's all I really have to promote here, Carm. Looking forward to a huge day of baseball as well. I've got a few plays I like in baseball, but I'm getting ready, man. Today, really my work day today is going to be all about finishing my write-ups, getting things going with the NHL series, and then getting plays up for tomorrow. So the BOGO special, $2.99, guys. Take advantage. You get all of my plays for the entire playoffs, all of Carmine's plays for the entire playoffs. So to me, that's the big one there, Carm.
All right. I love it. I'm going to have a no soccer for me today. Good day yesterday in soccer. Good day in NHL and an MLB winner too. Now with NHL being condensed, I'll have some more baseball plays going out as well too. More time to spend on it. But it's going to be a busy weekend with obviously European football, the NHL playoffs, and some MLB. So maybe also pick up that 3-day all access and get all plays through the weekend. For NHL clients, the NHL series, my NHL series plays are going up. The first one went out this morning. Another one up after the show. And then the NHL games for the weekend as well too. So you can pick those all up over at WagerTalk, and 3-day all access will cover all of that. Let's have a great playoffs, man. I'm looking forward to it. Andrew, close us out.
Guys, the regular season is gone. It's now time for the playoffs. Enjoy, best of luck, bet responsibly, and find us every weekday right here on WagerTalk TV.